Have you ever thought about how tragic Remus Lupin's fate truly was? What if his life was even harder than Harry Potter's, filled with pain, loss, and sacrifice? In today's video, you will discover the untold struggles of one of the most tragic characters in the wizarding world. Remus Lupin's story is one of sorrow and resilience. Born a half-blood wizard, his life changed forever when a cruel revenge turned him into a werewolf at the age of 5. His father's careless words against werewolves enraged Fenrir Greyback, a future Death Eater who attacked the young boy, cursing him with lycanthropy. From that night on, every full moon became a nightmare, transforming into a beast, craving flesh, losing himself in an uncontrollable hunger. His parents feared he would never be accepted into Hogwarts, but Albus Dumbledore gave him a chance. A secret sanctuary was created for him, the infamous Shrieking Shack, where he endured lonely, painful transformations. Despite his fears of rejection, he found true friendship in James Potter, Sirius Black, and Peter Pettigrew. They did the unthinkable, became animagi to support him through his suffering. For the first time, Remus felt he wasn't alone. After school, his life took a darker turn. The war against Voldemort raged on, and he fought alongside the Order of the Phoenix. But one by one, he lost everything. James and Lily were murdered. Sirius, his closest friend, was branded a traitor. Peter was presumed dead. With no family, no friends, and no future, Remus wandered in despair, struggling to find work. Society saw him as nothing more than a monster. Isolated and broken, he withdrew from the world. Then Dumbledore returned with an offer that reignited a spark of hope. Remus became a professor at Hogwarts, teaching defense against the dark arts. He was a brilliant teacher, beloved by students. But the past came crashing back. When Sirius escaped Azkaban, everything changed. The truth unraveled. Sirius was innocent, and Peter was the real traitor. Yet before justice could be served, Remus made one fatal mistake. He forgot to take his wolfsbane potion, lost control, and transformed in front of everyone. His secret was out. Fearing he had put students in danger, he resigned, once again an outcast. When Voldemort returned, Remus rejoined the Order, risking his life as a spy among werewolves. He met and fell in love with Nymphadora Tonks, but guilt consumed him. Could a werewolf have a family? Could he protect them? Despite his fears, he and Tonks married and had a son, Teddy. For the first time in his life, Remus had something to live for. But happiness was fleeting. The final battle for Hogwarts began, and he fought bravely. He faced Antonin Dolohov in a duel that would be his last. His wife, Tonks, perished soon after at the hands of Bellatrix Lestrange. Their newborn son was left an orphan, just like Harry. Remus Lupin was posthumously awarded the Order of Merlin First Class, the first werewolf to ever receive it. His death marked a turning point in the relationship between wizards and werewolves. His life was one of endless struggle, loss, and sacrifice. He was a man who had every reason to give in to bitterness, yet he remained kind, brave, and loyal until the very end. And that is what makes him one of the most extraordinary characters in the entire Harry Potter series. Have you ever thought about what would have happened if Remus Lupin had survived the Battle of Hogwarts? What if he had been given the chance to raise his son and finally find peace? In today's story, we explore an alternate path, one where fate showed him mercy. The battle was over. The castle lay in ruins, bodies scattered across the grounds, but Voldemort was dead. Among the fallen, Remus lay motionless, but something stirred within him. A stubborn refusal to let go, a weak heartbeat, a shallow breath, a miracle. He had collapsed after his duel with Dolohov, believing he had lost, yet life clung to him. Someone, perhaps a healer, perhaps sheer luck, had pulled him back from the brink. When he awoke in the great hall, surrounded by the dead and grieving, reality hit him like a curse. Tonks was gone. She had died protecting the school, their son now left without a mother. The pain was unbearable, but something deeper kept him breathing. Teddy needed him. The days after the battle were a blur. The wizarding world tried to rebuild, but Remus wandered through it like a ghost. He attended funerals, stood by Andromeda Tonks as she buried her only daughter, and held his infant son for the first time with trembling hands. Teddy had her eyes. That alone was enough to break him. He felt unworthy, a broken man, a father who had nothing to offer. But Dumbledore's voice echoed in his memory, reminding him of the choices that define a man. He had a choice, to wallow in grief or to fight for the future his friends had died for. Raising a child alone was terrifying. The first few months were the hardest. Teddy cried through the nights, sensing the absence of the mother he would never know. Remus barely slept, too afraid to leave his son's side. There were nights he sat in the dark, rocking him to sleep, whispering stories of the parents he would never meet, the stories of how Tonks had been fearless, how she had laughed at danger, how she had loved him despite his fears. Harry visited often, determined to help. He had lost his own parents to war, and he refused to let Teddy grow up without love. The bond between them deepened, and in many ways Remus saw a reflection of James in Harry, reckless, brave, but carrying a heart too big for one person. Together they figured out how to be a family in the ruins of what had been lost. The wizarding world changed, but the scars of the war remained. Even with Voldemort gone, prejudices against werewolves did not disappear overnight. Remus struggled to find steady work. Few were willing to employ someone like him. He tried to return to teaching, but the ministry hesitated. People still feared what he was. At times he considered leaving the wizarding world altogether, raising Teddy in the Muggle world, where his past wouldn't matter. But then he thought of James, of Sirius, of all those who had fought to make a world where they could live without hiding. He refused to let fear win. With time, things began to shift. Kingsley Shacklebolt, now Minister for Magic, pushed for reforms. The werewolf registry was dismantled, Wolfsbane potion became more accessible, and slowly the world started to accept that Remus Lupin was not a monster. He was a war hero, a teacher, a father. Years passed, and Teddy grew. He had his mother's mischief and his father's quiet strength. He was a metamorphmagus, changing his hair and eyes with a thought, much to Andromeda's delight. But more than anything, he was loved. Remus made sure of that. He never let his son feel like he was alone. Every bedtime story was filled with memories of the people who had come before him. Every lesson he taught carried the weight of those who had given their lives for the world they now lived in. On the anniversary of the Battle of Hogwarts, Remus took Teddy to the memorial that had been built in the castle courtyard. Names carved in stone, familiar names, James Potter, Lily Potter, Sirius Black, Tonks Lupin, so many others. Teddy was too young to fully understand, but one day he would. One day he would know that his mother had been a hero, that his father had once been afraid of love but had chosen it anyway. Life was not perfect. Remus still faced his demons. Full moons still brought pain. There were nights he locked himself away, refusing to let his son see him at his weakest, but he no longer faced them alone. Andromeda, Harry, Hermione, even George Weasley, who had lost his twin and understood grief too well, became his family. They raised Teddy together, ensuring he never felt the void of what had been taken from him. Years later, as Teddy prepared for his first year at Hogwarts, Remus stood at Platform 934, watching his son board the train. The same train he had once taken, carrying his own fears and hopes. But Teddy was different. He was not weighed down by a curse. He was not an outcast. He was a boy with a home, with love, with a future brighter than the past his father had endured. As the train pulled away, Teddy waved from the window, his hair flashing between colours in excitement. Remus smiled, a quiet peace settling over him. He had survived. He had lived to see his son off to Hogwarts. He had defied the fate that had once seemed so cruel, and for the first time in his life he truly believed he had won.